Well, hi and welcome to Practice Makes Parent, where we understand it's not about perfection, but about transformation. I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. And today we're talking about some of the difficulties that we face as parents. And Danny, this is a really rich one, and I think one that many parents will be very interested to hear some expert advice on. I know I am. I loved this conversation that we had with our guest coming up because our oldest daughter, Gemma, is 10, and she's a sweetheart and for the most part in a good place, but I do sense some of that preteen pushback and a little bit of that, to be honest, self-focus that does bother me as a mom. And you start projecting forward, I think, a little bit as a parent, and you go, wow, I'm dealing with a little bit of this at 10, and we're just preteen. We're not even teen right now. And I can tend to fear, Danny, a bit. Right. And I think a lot of parents probably do feel that, both in preteen and teen years, of how do I navigate this wisely? How do I navigate it with wisdom? How do I call my child to the highest and express that belief in them, but not involve shaming? How do I give them boundaries? I mean, all of this stuff can be really complex. Oh, yeah. I want the best for her, for all our kids. I really do.
Yeah, and you can feel hopeless or even, powerless, helpless in those moments where your kids are bringing their will, their opinion, their thoughts, and it's not the best for them.
Yep.
I remember potty training time with my son. And he was such a neat, compliant, beautiful, wonderful young boy until this moment, right?
How interesting.
He was fantastic, very easy. Just the hardest part was getting him to sleep at night. It wasn't really that big
sleep
of a deal.
And potty training.
And when we got to potty training, I remember him looking over at me, and I was so proud of the fact that he had gone over to the toilet. Mm-hmm. He was standing there. I was going, oh my goodness. Here we go. I think it's happening.
Just like everything else, other than sleep. Yeah. It's happening.
And so then he looks at me, steps over, takes one step over, and starts to go.
Oh, no.
And I'm going, what just happened?
Who are you?
That his will just came out. He willfully did that.
No.
I was going, what has happened to my son?
Yeah. And then you're projecting to like 10 years later. You're like, what is this going to be?
So I'm looking at him, and he is just peeing on the floor.
No.
And it's just going all over.
No.
And he just looked at smiling and just having a great time with the whole thing. And meanwhile, inside of me, my emotions are just
100%.
And I'm going, okay, what do I do here? How do I respond to this? This was not supposed to happen. And so he finished, and I said, well, son, it looks like you're going to be cleaning up a lot here. And let me get all the cleaning stuff. And he goes, no, Daddy, I don't. So you're going to have to clean up what you just did. It's going to be kind of a pain. And I was trying not to be sarcastic because I really felt like I wanted to be a bit sarcastic in the moment. And so I brought all the cleaning things and had him be kind of the main cleaner. I helped him. And I said, hey, maybe you'll need to try that again. Next time you need to go, let's try it again. And he almost went in the trash can one time when it was right by the toilet. And I'm going, what is going on? So we had to really bring in a lot of skill set into this whole potty training.
It was a battle of the wills.
It was a battle of the wills. And he doesn't remember much of it. We do. I love my son. And that was a good reminder to me as a dad. There's going to be a lot of teaching. There's going to be a lot of relationship along the way. And my son has his own priorities, his own thoughts, his own will, and I need to get to know him. And I also remember when my daughter went to middle school, and she was having issues with her friends, and some of those emotions were coming into the house. And so she was a little shorter, more spicy is what I called it. I said, hey, you're a little spicy. And she would still answer a little spicy to that. And it really gave me a reminder that I needed to go a little deeper and understand what was happening. And it was for me, it was a moment of understanding the complexity of what was happening in each of our kids' lives, and that I needed to spend some time with her to understand all the stresses and pressures, because she did say, there's just so much going on with my friends, there's a lot going on at school. And he gave me clues that it wasn't about me. It wasn't about that moment. It was about a lot of things happening before that moment, and it was just
100%.
spilling over.
Yeah.
And so it is fun to be a dad. I have loved it. There have been some challenging moments along the way.
Yeah. For every parent.
And we just need to remember to look around, to look at the community around us, and to know that as we get to know each of our kids, we'll adjust our parenting. But as we'll see in the segments coming up, we need to be clear and we need to be consistent.
Absolutely. Great thoughts, Danny. Well, we've got some wonderful segments coming up for you. Later, we'll hear a question from an overwhelmed single mom who wants to know how to manage asking for help with her kids. But first, we have a great conversation with Dr. Dave Clarke about some ways we can navigate the difficulties of parenthood. Dr. Clarke is a licensed psychologist who has authored over a dozen books on parenting and marriage. Let's listen to our conversation with Dave.
Hey, Dave, so excited to have you on the show. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Now, I love the title of your book, Parenting is Hard and Then You Die. Can you tell us a little bit about
that one?
that title?
The inspiration.
Yes.
It just popped into my head one day. We have 4 children. We had 3 right in a row, 3
Wow.
wonderful girls, and we were going to stop. Thank you, Lord. Everything's done. Sandy, my wonderful blonde, couldn't keep her hands off me, and so we had William. And so that was just, total and utter. Even one can be chaotic. 4 little kids running around, total chaos. It's hard. So I thought, you know what? God just gave me the title. It resonates with parents because they know I get it.
Yes.
It's
catchy.
a great title.
Yes,
It's
it
really
is.
funny. If you were to summarize your book for us as to how you're helping equip parents to have a plan, what would that be?
It would be relationship. Everything in our way of thinking came down to that individual relationship with each child. Knowing them, and of course, as you know, Rebecca, they come out, and Danny too, they come out with their personality.
Yes,
they
You
do.
have done nothing except hold the baby who's just been born. Emily was screaming her little head off. She was our first. She's outgoing. She's boisterous. You always know she's in the room. Leanne comes in, and she's sweet, and she's composed. And the other, Nancy and William, totally different. So we built a relationship with each child, and we felt like if we could do that and be close to them and spend time and understand who they were, then they would listen, and then we could have major impact. So that theme runs throughout the book.
Great.
And most parents will have this experience. There are certain children, and even your own children, that are more difficult to connect with than others. Okay, if a kid's just like me, well, this is the greatest kid in the world. Because it's okay. But if they're not, but you love them the same, and you build that bridge, and man, it carries the day. It does.
It does. And you mentioned they're born with a sin nature. And I think about infants, how they come out with this desire that is driven by survival. And it really requires a lot of the attention from each of the parents as you're trying to be all in. And it also requires intentionality in the marriage as you're trying to respond to all these desires and needs and wants that your kids bring into the house. How does a couple maintain that relationship together as a married couple when all these demands are coming their way? What are some ways that you recommend couples do that?
Boy, I've recommended this for 40 years. The most important relationship in the home, humanly speaking, is you and your spouse. Great marriages produce great kids. If you're in conflict, if you're not doing well, you're distracted, the kids feed off of that, they begin to act out, the whole thing falls apart. So what we did every day, or at least 4 or 5 times a week, we would have a couple talk time. We put the kids to bed. And parents were always, well, they don't want to go to bed. It's so hard. They sleep in our bed. Shut up. I'm a blunt person. No. This isn't
No
about
way.
them getting their rest. I would tell my kids, I don't care if you stay awake all night. Just don't bother me again. We've loved you. It's over. So it's about your marriage. Now, they need their sleep anyway. So we would lock them in their rooms if we had to, frankly. But didn't have to. We threatened that. We never did it. But this is our time, and we would emotionally and spiritually connect in that 30 minutes. No TV, no screens, no answering the phone, no nothing. And the kids knew, if you're not projectile vomiting, do not, or there's not a man breaking into the room, you are not to bother us. Because this is our marriage.
Yeah.
And then once a week, we would go out on a romantic date. We did that for years. You have to have 2 or 3 babysitters because these wonderful little Christian girls get a boyfriend and it's over.
Or they go to college.
I would try to say, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, the nerve. And so you have to have a roster. Our family was helpful. And we developed these relationships with other families because the cost of babysitting these days is obscene. But if you have other families in the church, you can swap.
Yes,
And,
it's a great idea.
I'll sit for your kids. This, you know what? And so we were very faithful about that. Part of our couple talk time was a prayer time, praying for the kids, praying for ourselves, praying for our marriage. Man, and we would get these getaways 2-3 times a year. We'd dump the kids, allow our parents to take care of them. We would just go down the street. My parents lived in town. They were in heaven now, but they lived here, and we would drop them off and have a wonderful weekend. So you got to fight for that time, but the couple talk time saved us.
Wow, I love how practical that is, Dave. It's just so helpful, and it encourages me and my husband and I do try to have regular date nights, and we see the value in that. But I love that you're breaking this down even further into something that is even more doable in that. I mean, sometimes for some of us, it's just like getting out the door, organizing a babysitter, going out to eat, just feels like a lot in your crazy life. But you're saying, look, you don't even have to do that necessarily. I mean, that's great. Every week would be great. But the 4 to 5 times a week of couple time, even just a half an hour, I think we can all go, oh, yeah, if I prioritize that and really were firm with the kids about, and we say to our kids, Mommy and Daddy need friendship time. Like we need time. Like it's really, really important to the health of our family that our friendship is strong, and we want that. And so you've got to help us prioritize that as well. Yeah. And so I love what you're saying, and it's really resonating with me. Thank you for really speaking that to all of us. You write that having a close relationship with your children, a big part of that is meeting their 5 critical needs. Can you speak to what those are and how we can do that practically?
Yeah, let's discuss that. And we had great success with this with our kids. Love, respect, competence, spirituality, and independence. If you can hit those needs in practical ways, you're going to meet that child's needs. They're going to grow up to love the Lord and hopefully love you and be responsible. Let's take love, very simple, and I talk to parents all the time. Once a day, you're going to say, I love you, and use the child's name. I love you, Timmy. I love you, Susie. It's always Timmy and Susie. Anyway, you're going to, and some parents say, oh, I wasn't raised that way. I can't really say those words. I say, you know what? Get over it. Yes, you can. Repeat after me.
Important.
Get it done. Oh, my goodness. Kids need to hear that. They're going to go through a day. Nobody's going to tell them that. And then I think a physical touch, also very important. Just something, a squeeze of the shoulder, a hug. When they get into teenage years, of course, personal space requirements. But you can sneak up behind them and kind of hug them a little bit. Oh, get off of me. But they need that touch. If you're not affectionate, again, I would say get over it. This is too important. So those are 2 very practical things you can do. And then, of course, time. With all my kids were different. They wanted to do different things. And a lot of things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to play Barbies with my 3 daughters for years. I mean, that's not my thing. When you're with girls especially, it's all about conversation. You're talking about all kinds of stuff as you're doing the Barbie thing.
It's good.
And William, of course, was a sports guy, so we did sports all the time. But when they wanted to do, Emily liked to walk. I walked with Emily. Nancy was a bike rider. We rode the bike all over the neighborhood, and she just kept going farther and farther. And Leanne would love to be taken out to eat. She's a talker. She loves to eat. We did that. So whatever they want to do, you do. And it paid off. So respect goes both ways, of course, and this is where discipline comes in. You're going to respect. We're going to teach you to respect your mother and I. And here are the rules of the house, and we will require you to obey, or you'll face consequences. If you do well, you get rewards. But also, you respect your children. And that gets harder as they get into the teen years. They know everything, and you know nothing. Your brain has shrunk to a size of a pea, and they know all the world's wisdom. And so you have to listen to them talking about things they don't know anything about, but you listen, you respect. and then you have a dialogue. And with their rooms, even though of course we own the house, if I want to come in your room, it's my room, I'm coming in. But we would grant them always knock. Of course, with girls, I had to knock. Always knock on the door. It's Daddy. And they'd wait a few minutes to kind of get themselves, whatever women do when you're waiting for them to come to the door. But anyway, they would come, but we showed them respect. This is your kind of domain. I'm coming in, but I'll grant you that. So respect, of course, very important too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, competence is critical. Every child has a gift from God, a spiritual gift as well as an ability. You need to find that, whether it's a sport, whether it's dance, whether it's a martial arts, whether it's singing, whatever it might be, and you push that child into that, and they'll enjoy it. It's a basis of self-esteem for life and a protection against temptation. The child who isn't good at anything and thinks they're just lousy, Satan will give you something to be good at. Drugs, alcohol, whatever else it might be. No. And video games doesn't count. I mean, we want a bona fide skill. And then, of course, spirituality. We had at least once a week family devotions, and we would talk with them throughout the day. They were in a solid church, children's program, youth group, vitally important. And then independence. From a very early age, you start letting them go. Sleepovers, second, third grade, with people that you know and trust with your life, of course. And you start, Christian camps can be wonderful. Sunday school, we start letting them go because we're trying to launch them when they're 18.
That's fantastic. So, Dave, I love this. So love, respect, competence, spirituality, and independence, that autonomy that a child can have and so desires, and these meet the core needs that a child has developmentally along the way. And one thing that stood out to me here that we've talked about before on the show is really pressing pause on your life to stop and listen and to get to know each of your kids. Because many times behavior issues, emotional issues require a bit of extra listening to really understand first what is happening behind all the behaviors, behind all the emotions that begin to pop. And we need to listen first before we discipline. And I know you talk about discipline in your book and really in your talks, right, Dave? You go into this area of disciplining your kids. It is difficult. It's complex. But you offer encouragement and a plan around that. Let's talk about that for a while, because I think that's very practical for parents. Every day offers opportunities for disciplining. Tell us more about your approach to that, Dave.
It's such a vital area, as you both know. And we really want to parent the way that God parents us. God says, here are my standards. Here are the rules, which are best for you, not just because willy-nilly I think I want you to do these things. This is best for you, but God says you have a free will. If you choose to obey my principles and my laws, you will be rewarded. There'll be blessing in your life from me. If you choose to disobey, and it's certain you can do, and sin, well, then there will be consequences, and there's always consequences for sin. Well, we do the same thing with our children, hopefully. Here are the rules of the house, many of which are in the Bible. Here are the standards. God just given them to us. Here are the standards. And there's specific standards depending on the kid. You wouldn't require Timmy, who's terrible at math, to get an A+ in math. Okay, you're kind of figure out what they can actually do, but there are very clear standards for each child. And we told our kids, and I tell many parents this, every day is a new day. As the sun comes up, you have a fresh slate. Whatever happened yesterday is gone, unless it's been something really awful. Okay, we had to really, really ground you for a while, or really take steps or therapy, whatever. But okay, the sun comes up, you have a fresh chance. Make your bed, get your homework done. Don't make us late to school. There's a certain things they have to do, and if you choose to do those things, up to you. Free country. It's in the Constitution. Emily, that's fine. She's our strong-willed one. Fine. Then there'll be rewards. You'll have the usual day. You will have the screen time you want. You can use your phone. You can have a social life. You can talk to your boyfriend if you have one, if you're 16 and up. But if you choose to not do those things, and that's up to you, then there will be consequences. And you might lose these things for the rest of today. We had this daily system, and it really seemed to work. You'd like to say sometimes, Johnny, you're grounded for life. Well, you can't really pull that off. So you will say, okay, Johnny, you've lost your phone for the rest of today. I can't live without my phone. Well, we're going to plan a funeral because you're not going to have the phone. But tomorrow morning when the sun comes up, Johnny, the phone is back. And you can keep that phone with our limitations if you simply will obey the standards. It's pretty neat and clean. And I'm not going to force you to do it. It's not really, I don't care if you do it, but it's almost like you know what? It's out of my hands. From very early, kids have a will, and they choose. My 4-year-old grandson, who they named after me, David. Anyway, that was the honor of my life. And he's just like me, poor kid. Talks up a storm, kind of a crazy character, but he knows right from wrong right now. And he knows when he breaks the limit. His parents, Phil and Nancy are wonderful. Our daughter Nancy and her husband Phil they will correct him, and there will be a consequence. He's learning. This doesn't seem to work for me. So that's worked really. I think it works well if you follow that plan.
Wow, Danny, I really found Dave's humor really refreshing.
Yes.
I love that he goes about some of the challenges of parenting with a sense of humor.
He brings it spicy.
He makes it spicy,
That's right.
like Lexi.
Yeah.
But I also really liked his content, that he was encouraging consistency in parenting. And, it reminds me of growing up with my mom just saying, follow through and in parenting, being consistent, following through with what you say as a parent, and what the consequences are going to be if there's disobedience, if there's disrespect, following through with that is really important. And she said that to me, especially since I've become a parent, and it really makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I do. I love what he said about being clear all along, even when you're in those moments of correction. It's complicated though to be very clear up front ahead of time.
Yes.
Putting those clear parameters, because you can't anticipate everything.
Oh, no.
Then
But
something
you're trying
comes
to be
up, and then
intentional.
you're going, well, okay. So when this happens, this is the consequence that comes with it. And I think there's a negative connotation to consequence when really it's about correcting a behavior that went the wrong direction because of a need or a want that is there underneath the surface. So to help our kids clearly understand why we even have consequences, why we even have consistent rules or even standards, they're done out of love. We want our kids to grow up and to have wonderful relationships, to have healthy relationships, to be able to persevere, to be able to be resilient adults. We want the very best for them.
Absolutely.
And even as we put standards around sex for our kids, we tell them these are the standards because we want them to enjoy what God has created for them within the context of its design.
Yes.
And so each thing needs to be very clear as to why it's even there. And I love what Dave said about having these clear standards so that there aren't any surprises. And that really does soften the amount of conflict where you're not getting stuck there. You're just saying, hey, we agreed to this. This is what we're reinforcing. I do think the other part that I love about our conversation is the need to protect the marriage, the relationship. And I realize there are a lot of listeners that are in a single parent situation. So in this case, this is specific to the married couple. Make sure you're guarding that relationship. There's an enemy wanting to divide your home.
100%.
And your kids need to know that you are wanting to protect it. And so when you get in arguments, you're protecting a relationship and you want to model that rather than protecting yourself. And the more you model that in a marriage relationship and in the relationship with your kids, that you're actually trying to defend the home, not yourself, it changes the culture of your home.
Well, if you would like to dive deeper into this topip, we would like to offer you David's book, Parenting is Hard and Then You Die. That title definitely gave me a chuckle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We would like to give you that for a gift of any amount. You can find the link below in the show notes. Well, it's time for our weekly Q&A. This week's question comes from Eliza, who asked, I'm a single mom with 3 kids. I used to be able to handle things on my own, but with a full-time job and online school, it's been getting a whole lot more difficult over the past year. What do I do? This is a good question, Danny, and you do hear some desperation kind of in these.
Very relatable.
Yeah, in this question. And the only thought that I had, and I really want to get to your thoughts on it, Danny, but my daughter Gemma, who is 10, is kind of looking to be a mama's helper. Like, she's like, Mom, how can I get a little job at my age? And I think there's a lot of preteen or teen girls who would love to be able to, especially homeschool ones who have some flexibility, would love to be able to go to another Christian family's house and help and be a mama's helper. And so I think there's opportunities like that. Obviously, just straight up babysitting is a great help as well. The church, wonderful resource for help. But I love that she's asking this question: what do I do to kind of restore balance within my home? Because my schedule and my life right now is not sustainable. That's what I hear her saying, which a lot of us relate to.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I know you and Cubby say the healthy yeses and the healthy nos.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to take inventory of what we've said yes to, and how to really look at the schedule and seeing, is there anything that I can cut out here? And for a single mom, this is complicated because
she probably can't.
She may not. And that's where you get to ask for help potentially. And it could even be grocery shopping that you ask for help with, or it can be like you said, the babysitting part. It can also be having somebody come and help clean your house.
Yes.
And there's no shame in asking for that. And you mentioned the church pretty quickly. I think the church does have a lot of that, but there's a waiting for somebody to ask for help, not just an automatic offering, because there's an awkwardness there too. People don't want to assume, since you're single, that you're needing help. And so you're going to have to take that step and say, hey, is there any help in our church? I'm struggling. I'm overwhelmed. And maybe having that trusted person, the pastor, or there can be a teaching pastor, outreach pastor. It can be a variety of people that can help problem solve with you. And if you have a real small church and maybe that's not present there may be other churches around the community you can seek out help through. But it's gonna require learning who can I trust, what can I trust them with.
Yes.
And if you do have close friends, this is where you tap in and say, hey, is there any way that I could get some help while I go grocery shop? Because that may be very therapeutic for you to just get away, go shop for things, get that, and have that margin to be able to slowly shop and really think through that.
Yep.
It may be that you want to go work out, and that's a great outlet, but you don't have room for that. Maybe that's when you're able to ask for a friend to help while you do that 2 or 3 times a week to get re-energized.
Or trading out babysitting too.
Oh, that's
saying,
great idea.
I can take your kids and you can take mine. We can kind of trade out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trusted relationship.